September 25th, 1944. London, 10 Downing Street. Beneath the streets of Westminster, the underground war rooms are quieter than they have been in months. Winston Churchill stands beside a large map table, a teacup resting in his hand, watching the pale morning light push through reinforced windows. For the first time since 1939, the war feels as though it might truly be drawing to a close. France has been liberated. Allied armies are driving forward toward the Rhine River, the final great barrier before the German heartland finally seems within reach. General Hastings Ismay, Churchill's chief of staff, enters quietly and takes his place beside the Prime Minister at the map. They have been reviewing the situation in Holland, where Operation Market Garden, Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery's daring plan to seize a chain of bridges across the Netherlands and leap the Rhine, has now been underway for 8 days. The reports so far have been mixed, but Montgomery has repeatedly assured everyone that the operation is progressing as planned. An aide steps forward. He is young, pale, and holding a folder stamped urgent, Market Garden. Eyes only. Churchill takes it without a word and opens it. His expression changes immediately. The teacup freezes halfway to his lips before he slowly lowers it back to the table. "How many?" he asks quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. The aide swallows. "Approximately 10,000 casualties, sir. The 1st Airborne Division at Arnhem, they've been nearly destroyed. The bridge couldn't be held. They've been evacuated. What's left of them?" Churchill does not move. He stares at the report in silence. 10,000 British casualties in 9 days, all for a bridge they failed to capture. An operation meant to end the war by Christmas has instead become one of the bloodiest Allied failures since D-Day. He looks up at Ismay. "Where's General Patton right now?" Ismay steps to the map and points east of Nancy, deep in eastern France, nearing the German frontier. "Here, sir. 3rd Army captured Nancy 4 days ago. They're advancing toward." Churchill studies a map, comparing Montgomery's positions in the north with Patton's far to the south, nearly 200 miles apart. He places the Market Garden folder down on the table, as though it weighs 100 pounds. "Give me the fuel allocation reports," he says. "Montgomery's and Patton's. I want to see exactly what we gave them." What Churchill is about to uncover will ignite a political firestorm that nearly fractures the Allied command structure. If you want to see how this story ends, how one of history's most dramatic military comparisons unfolds, make sure you're subscribed to WW2 Elite. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss what happens next, because what Churchill learns in the next hour will change everything. The reports arrive within 20 minutes. Churchill spreads them across the table, while Ismay stands beside him, reading over his shoulder. The numbers are stark and undeniable. Operation Market Garden, September 17th through September 25th, 1944. 9 days. Field Marshal Montgomery's 21st Army Group received absolute priority for supplies. 1,400 tons of fuel per day. Every truck, every gallon, every available resource diverted north to support the largest airborne operation in history. The objective was clear: capture the bridges across the Netherlands, cross the Rhine at Arnhem, drive into Germany's industrial Ruhr region, and end the war by Christmas. The result was devastating. The British 1st Airborne Division was dropped near Arnhem on September 17th. They were expected to hold the bridge for 2 days until ground forces arrived. Those ground forces never made it. German resistance was far stronger than intelligence had predicted. 2 SS Panzer divisions, veteran, experienced, and lethal, were refitting near Arnhem. The British paratroopers fought for 9 days, surrounded, outnumbered, and steadily running out of ammunition and medical supplies. On the night of September 25th, the survivors were evacuated across the Rhine under cover of darkness. Of the 10,000 men who dropped at Arnhem, only 2,000 made it back. Total Market Garden casualties exceeded 10,000. Total territorial gain, 64 miles into Holland. Total strategic objectives achieved, 0. The Rhine Bridge at Arnhem, the prize and purpose of the entire operation, remained firmly in German hands. Churchill turns to the second report, Third Army Operations. Same dates, September 17 through September 25th. General George Patton's Third Army received 700 tons of fuel per day, exactly half of what Montgomery had been given. Operating 200 miles to the south, advancing to Lorraine toward Germany, Patton received no special resources. In fact, he had been complaining for weeks that his army was being deliberately starved of fuel while Montgomery received everything. The results speak for themselves. During those same 9 days, while Market Garden collapsed, Patton's Third Army captured 12 fortified cities: Nancy, Lunéville, Château-Salins, Saarburg, Metz under siege. They crossed 3 major rivers, the Moselle, the Meurthe, and the Mortagne. They advanced 60 miles. They captured 45,000 German prisoners and inflicted an estimated 55,000 German casualties through combat and capture. Third Army casualties, approximately 2,100. Churchill reads the figures again. Then again, he removes his glasses, rubs his eyes, puts them back on, and reads the numbers one more time. Pug, he says quietly, using Ismay's nickname. Tell me if I'm reading this correctly. Ismay hesitates. Sir, I verified the figures with 3 separate sources. Just tell me. Montgomery received 1,400 tons of fuel per day. He advanced 64 miles in 9 days, about 7 miles per day. He suffered 10,000 casualties and achieved none of his strategic objectives. Churchill nods slowly. And Patton, 700 tons per day, half as much fuel. He advanced nearly the same distance while conducting 3 major river crossings, captured 12 cities, suffered 2,000 casualties, and took 45,000 enemy prisoners. According to the latest reports, he's now less than 20 miles from the German border near Saarbrücken. Churchill walks to the map and traces the supply routes with a single finger. Every truck, every ton of fuel, every priority shipment had been sent north to Montgomery from Market Garden. Meanwhile, Patton, operating on half rations, won battle after battle. He turns to Ismay, his voice dangerously calm. Get me General Eisenhower on the telephone. Immediately. The secure line connects at 10 a.m. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, Versailles, France. General Dwight Eisenhower is in the middle of a staff meeting when an aide interrupts him. Sir, the Prime Minister is on the line. Eisenhower knows instantly that this will not be a pleasant call. Churchill only calls directly when something is seriously wrong. Good morning, Prime Minister. Churchill's voice is clipped and formal. Good morning, Ike. I need you to explain something to me. And I assure you, I will need to explain it to Parliament within 48 hours, so I would appreciate absolute clarity. Of course, sir, Eisenhower replies. What seems to be the problem? Did we authorize an operation that consumed virtually our entire logistical capacity and delivered the single bloodiest week since D-Day? There's a pause on the line. At Supreme Headquarters, Eisenhower's staff members listening in on extension phones exchange uneasy glances. Prime Minister, Market Garden was a calculated risk. Eisenhower finally replies. Field Marshal Montgomery believed, and our intelligence supported, that German resistance in the north was collapsing. The plan was to exploit that weakness with a rapid thrust, supported by airborne forces. I attended the briefings. Ike, I know what the plan was. Churchill cuts in. What I need to understand is why General Patton is capturing German cities with half the fuel, while Monty is bleeding men with all of it. Eisenhower chooses his words with care. George's sector faces lighter opposition. The Saar region isn't as heavily defended as the Rhine crossings. The strategic importance. Don't insult my intelligence. Churchill snaps. 45,000 prisoners is not light opposition. Those are entire divisions. Divisions that could have reinforced Arnhem. Patton is destroying German units. Montgomery lost an entire airborne division trying to capture one bridge. Winston, I understand your frustration. Do you? Churchill interrupts. Because here is what I'm seeing. We gave Montgomery everything he asked for. Absolute priority. 1,400 tons of fuel per day. An elite airborne division. Total air superiority. And he produced a disaster. Meanwhile, we gave Patton half of that, and he's knocking on Germany's door. So help me understand the logic. Eisenhower sighs. It's barely audible over the line, but Churchill hears it. Monty has requested a meeting to discuss future operations. Eisenhower says carefully, he believed that with renewed resources, a concentrated push toward the Ruhr. More resources? Churchill's voice rises sharply. Ike, here is what I want you to tell the Field Marshal. The Prime Minister's office would very much like to understand why the general who demanded absolute priority for 9 days has produced absolute disaster. Can you convey that message? Winston, I need be frank with you, Eisenhower replies. Publicly criticizing Montgomery right now could fracture Allied unity at a critical moment. Allied unity didn't save those paratroopers at Arnhem. Churchill fires back, and unity doesn't win wars. Results do. Patton gets results. Why are we punishing him for Montgomery's failures? Eisenhower's voice tightens. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm trying to maintain a coalition. Then maintain it with competence, not politics. Churchill says coldly, I'll be visiting France next week. I want to tour both sectors, Montgomery's and Patton's. I want to see for myself where our resources went. Churchill hangs up before Eisenhower can respond. Ismay watches as Churchill lights a cigar with hands that are visibly shaking. The Prime Minister stares at the map for a long moment. Give me the casualty lists, he says quietly. All of them. Every name. I want to know exactly who we lost at Arnhem. Within 24 hours, the British press has a story. The Daily Telegraph runs a front-page headline. Arnhem. 10,000 casualties in failed Rhine crossing. By noon, every newspaper on Fleet Street has reporters demanding answers. By evening, they have the fuel allocation numbers. Someone leaked them, almost certainly from Churchill's office, though no one can prove it. The questions begin immediately. Why was Montgomery given every resource while Patton was starved? Why did the Prime Minister approve an operation that cost 10,000 men for zero strategic gain? Why are American generals succeeding while British generals fail? Labour MPs begin preparing questions for Parliament. Churchill's office receives more than 300 letters in 2 days from families demanding explanations. Mothers, wives, sisters. Why did my son die for Montgomery's vanity? Why wasn't intelligence about German tanks taken seriously? Why are we losing men while the Americans are winning? At Supreme Headquarters in Versailles, Eisenhower's staff goes into crisis mode. Montgomery arrives on September 28th, demanding a private meeting. It lasts 3 hours. Voices can be heard through the closed door. Montgomery's tone is defensive, insistent. He blames the weather, unexpected German resistance, intelligence failures, the Polish paratroopers who were meant to reinforce Arnhem but landed in the wrong location. Eisenhower's chief of staff, General Walter Bedell Smith, stands outside the door and listens. When Montgomery finally leaves, back rigid, jaw clenched, Smith enters Eisenhower's office. How bad? Smith asks. He wants another offensive. Eisenhower replies wearily. Full resources. A single thrust toward the Ruhr. He says Market Garden failed because we didn't give him enough. Smith stares at him. He lost 10,000 men with absolute priority and he wants more. He says Patton's success is irrelevant because the Saar isn't strategically important. Smith shakes his head slowly. George took 45,000 prisoners. That's not irrelevant. That's devastating to German combat power. Eisenhower rubs his temples. Churchill is coming. He wants to tour both sectors. Smith exhales. That's going to be a disaster. I know. Meanwhile, 200 miles south, General Omar Bradley, Patton's immediate superior and commander of the 12th Army Group, submits a formal logistics request to Eisenhower's headquarters. It's carefully worded and professional, but everyone who reads it understands exactly what it means. Third Army is positioned to reach the Rhine within 10 days. It provided adequate fuel allocation. Current operational tempo demonstrates capacity for sustained offensive operations with minimal casualties and maximum territorial gain. Recommend immediate increase in supply priority to exploit current tactical advantages before German forces consolidate defensive positions. The final line becomes legendary within SHEF. Bradley adds, almost as an afterthought, "We are winning a war with our hands tied, while others lose it with both hands free." Bradley never mentions Montgomery by name. He doesn't need to. The request circulates through every level of Allied command. Eisenhower's staff debates it. British liaison officers protest it. American generals quietly support it. And George Patton, reading a copy in his headquarters in Nancy, grins and writes in his diary, "Brad finally said it. About damn time." October 1st, 1944, Churchill makes an unannounced visit to France. He flies into Versailles and goes directly to Eisenhower's headquarters. British and American generals gather nervously in the conference room. Churchill enters carrying a thick, bound report, official and stamped with the War Office seal. He sets it on the conference table with a heavy thud. "Gentlemen," he says, "I've had my staff compile a comprehensive analysis of operations from September 17th through the 25th. I thought it might be useful for our discussion." He opens the report. The first page is a comparison chart. 2 columns, side by side. Operation Market Garden, 21st Army Group, September 17th to 25th, 1944. Fuel allocation, 1,400 tons per day. Casualties, 10,005. Cities captured, 0. Rivers crossed, 0. Bridges attempted, 1. Failed. Strategic objectives achieved, 0. Enemy prisoners, 3,200. Territorial gain, 64 miles. Final position, Nijmegen, Netherlands, 1 bridge short of the objective. 3rd Army Operations, September 17th through 25th, 1944. Fuel allocation, 700 tons per day. Casualties, 2,100. Cities captured, 12. Nancy, Lunéville, Château-Salins, Pont-à-Mousson, Nomeny, among others. Rivers crossed, 3. The Moselle, the Meurthe, and the Mortagne. Strategic objectives achieved. Siegfried Line defenses breached. Saar industrial region threatened. Enemy prisoners, 45,000. Territorial gain, 60 miles. Final position, German border near Saarbrücken. Churchill looks slowly around the room. British officers stare down at the table. American officers make a visible effort not to look smug. "I have one question," Churchill says, "and I need someone to answer it honestly. How is this possible?" Silence. "We gave Montgomery everything," Churchill continues. "Every resource, every priority. And George Patton, with half the fuel, produced results that make Market Garden look like a training exercise gone wrong. So I'll ask again, how is this possible?" Eisenhower clears his throat. "Prime Minister, the operational contexts were different. Montgomery faced entrenched SS divisions. So did Patton." Churchill replies immediately. "The 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division at Nancy. He destroyed it in 3 days. The terrain in Holland is flat, ideal for armor. Patton crossed 3 rivers and fought through the Vosges foothills. So no, I don't accept terrain as an explanation." A British general, one of Montgomery's senior staff officers, speaks carefully. "Prime Minister, if I may, Field Marshal Montgomery's objective was more ambitious. A single thrust deep into enemy territory requires competence." Churchill cuts in, which brings me to my next point. "Tomorrow I'm visiting the front. I'll be touring the Market Garden battlefield with Field Marshal Montgomery, and then I'll be visiting General Patton's sector. I suspect the contrast will be illuminating. October 2nd, 1944. The Netherlands. Churchill's motorcade arrives at the former staging area for Market Garden. The operation ended a week ago, but the evidence of disaster is everywhere. Destroyed gliders lie scattered across open fields. Burned-out vehicles line the roads. Temporary graves, marked with helmets and rifles, stand in neat, endless rows. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery meets Churchill outside the headquarters tent. He is impeccably dressed as always, posture confident, but there is tension in his jaw. "Prime Minister, I'm glad you could visit," Montgomery says. "I think once you see the situation firsthand, you'll understand the challenges we faced." Churchill says nothing. He simply gestures toward the nearest jeep. "Show me." They drive north along the highway the British armored divisions were meant to use to reach Arnhem. Hell's Highway, the soldiers call it. The road is lined with destroyed tanks, British, American, German. Every few miles, deep craters from German artillery pockmark the pavement. Shattered bridges, blackened by fire, are still being repaired by exhausted engineers. Montgomery speaks as they drive. "The intelligence failure was significant, Prime Minister. We had no indication SS Panzer divisions were in the area. The 9th and 10th SS were believed to be refitting in Germany, but they were here near Arnhem at full strength." "You were warned," Churchill says quietly. Montgomery pauses. "I'm sorry. Dutch resistance reported German armor." Churchill replies, "You dismissed it." "The intelligence was inconclusive," Montgomery answers. "Resistance reports are often exaggerated. 4,500 men of the 1st Airborne Division are dead or captured," Churchill says coldly, "because you decided inconclusive intelligence wasn't worth considering." Montgomery's face hardens. "Prime Minister, with respect, command decisions in combat require." "I'm not interested in lectures on command decisions, Bernard," Churchill interrupts. "I'm interested in why you made the wrong ones." They reach the Nijmegen Bridge, the farthest point Market Garden ever achieved. American paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne had captured this bridge in a heroic assault, crossing the Vaal River in flimsy canvas boats under intense fire. It stands as one of the very few successes of the entire operation. 10 miles away, barely visible in the distance, lies Arnhem, the bridge too far. "This is where it ended," Montgomery says. "We held here." If the 1st Airborne could have held Arnhem for just one more day. Montgomery begins. "They held for 9 days. Churchill snaps. 9 days surrounded by SS Panzer divisions. They held longer than anyone believed possible. The failure wasn't theirs. It was yours." Montgomery stiffens. "Prime Minister, I resent." "I'm not finished," Churchill says, turning to face him directly. "Yesterday I visited Nancy. Do you know what I saw there?" Montgomery says nothing. "I saw a city General Patton captured 4 days ago with 700 tons of fuel per day, half what you had. The city was intact. Civilians were returning. American engineers were already repairing the infrastructure. And do you know what General Patton told me when I asked about his casualties?" Montgomery's jaw tightens. He said, "Acceptable losses, Mr. Prime Minister. We keep moving and they can't hurt us." Then he showed me his maps. 12 cities, 3 rivers, 45,000 prisoners. All in the same week you lost 10,000 men for one bridge you didn't capture. "The situations are not comparable," Montgomery says tightly. "You're right," Churchill replies. "They're not, because Patton won and you lost." That evening, Churchill insists on visiting Arnhem itself. The town is still partially held by German forces, so they can only approach the southern bank of the Rhine. Across the river, the Arnhem Bridge stands intact, crowded with German vehicles and troops. British paratroopers fought for 9 days to hold the northern end of that bridge. They were evacuated, what remained of them, 1 week earlier. Churchill stands on the riverbank, staring across the water. Montgomery stands beside him in silence. After a long moment, Churchill speaks. "A bridge too far," he says. "That's what they're calling it, Bernard. The soldiers. They say it was a bridge too far." Montgomery does not respond. Churchill turns to him. "I'm beginning to think it wasn't the bridge that was too far. It was the ambition without the ability to match it." They return to the temporary headquarters in Eindhoven. A vast tent, maps covering every surface. Eisenhower is there, General Ismay, several senior staff officers. The atmosphere is tight, almost suffocating. Churchill sits, lights a cigar, and looks directly at Montgomery. "Bernard," he says evenly, "I want you to answer a question, and I want you to answer it truthfully." Montgomery nods stiffly. "Why did Market Garden fail, while Patton succeeds?" "Prime Minister," Montgomery replies, "as I've explained, the situations are not comparable. I faced 2 SS Panzer divisions that intelligence failed to identify. General Patton faced disorganized rear guard units in a secondary sector. 45,000 prisoners," Churchill interrupts. "In 1 week. Were those disorganized rear guard units kind enough to surrender on their own, or did Patton have to fight actual German divisions to capture them?" Montgomery's face flushes. "Patton's sector. Let's discuss intelligence." Churchill cuts in. "You were warned about German armor near Arnhem. Dutch resistance reports. Aerial reconnaissance. You dismissed it. Why?" "The intelligence was inconclusive," Montgomery answers. "I made a command decision based on the strategic opportunity." "The strategic opportunity to do what exactly?" Churchill asks sharply. "Lose an entire airborne division?" The room goes silent. Eisenhower shifts uncomfortably. Ismay stares down at his notes. Montgomery's voice, when he speaks again, is quiet but tightly controlled. "That is an insulting oversimplification." "Then simplify it for me," Churchill says, leaning forward. "You had priority. You had supply. You had elite troops, the finest paratroopers Britain has ever produced. You had complete air superiority. You had every advantage. Patton had half your fuel and won battles every single day. So simplify it, Field Marshal. Why did you fail?" "I did not fail," Montgomery snaps, his voice rising. "We achieved significant territorial gains. We drew German forces north, relieving pressure on other sectors. We prevented a German counteroffensive. You lost 10,000 men," Churchill replies, each word clipped and precise. "For a bridge you don't have, for a river you didn't cross, for objectives you didn't achieve. And while you were losing those men, George Patton was liberating French cities and taking German prisoners by the thousands. Now I must stand before Parliament next week and explain this to the British people. And frankly, Bernard, I am struggling to find an explanation that doesn't make you look incompetent." "Gentlemen, recriminations won't help," Eisenhower interjects. Churchill doesn't take his eyes off Montgomery. "I'm not recriminating, Ike. I'm evaluating. And my evaluation is this." We gave Montgomery the chance to. Montgomery stands abruptly. "If the Prime Minister believes I am unfit for command." "Sit down, Bernard," Churchill says calmly. "I'm not finished." Montgomery sits. His face is rigid. Every officer in the tent stares at the floor, the maps, anywhere but at the 2 men. Churchill takes a long draw on a cigar. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, colder. "Here is what I will tell Parliament. Operation Market Garden was a gamble, a bold gamble, and it failed. Wars are not won by gambling. Field Marshal. They are won by generals who deliver results with the resources available, not by generals who demand all the resources and deliver nothing but condolences." He stands and looks around the room. "George Patton is that kind of general. He takes what you give him and wins. You, Bernard, are not." The silence that follows is suffocating. Montgomery's face turns white. Eisenhower looks as though he would rather be anywhere else on earth. Ismay writes notes with intense concentration, avoiding everyone's eyes. Churchill walks toward the tent entrance, pauses, then turns back. One more thing. I understand General Bradley has requested increased fuel allocation for Third Army. I will be recommending to the combined chiefs of staff that we approve it. And with that, he leaves. Montgomery remains seated for a full minute. Then he stands, nods curtly to Eisenhower, and walks out without a word. Eisenhower looks around at his staff. Well, that could have gone worse. No one laughs. The political earthquake that follows reshapes Allied strategy for the rest of the war. Montgomery retains his command. Removing him would trigger a British political crisis Churchill cannot afford, but his influence is shattered. The single-thrust strategy he championed, concentrating all resources on his front for one massive push into Germany, is permanently rejected. Eisenhower's broad front approach becomes official policy. Every sector advances. No more absolute priority from Montgomery. Within a week, Patton's Third Army receives increased fuel allocations. By mid-October, they advance another 40 miles. By November, they are positioned along the German border, preparing to assault the Siegfried Line fortifications. Montgomery's 21st Army Group spends October and November clearing the Scheldt estuary to open the port of Antwerp. Vital work, but unglamorous. The headlines belong to Patton. The statistical comparison from September through October 1944 becomes part of official military history. Montgomery's 21st Army Group, 15,000 casualties, 40 miles advance, one major city captured, Antwerp. Though the port remains unusable until the Scheldt is cleared in November. Minimal German prisoners. Patton's Third Army, 8,000 casualties, 100 miles advanced, 18 cities captured, 67,000 prisoners, German forces shattered across Lorraine. Churchill never publicly humiliates Montgomery in Parliament. He is too skilled a politician for that. But his report to the House of Commons on October 10th is damning in its restraint. He praises the courage of the British paratroopers at Arnhem. He acknowledges the difficulty of the operation. Then he says, almost casually, one cannot help but observe that in modern war, boldness must be married to flexibility and speed. Some commanders possess this combination naturally, others do not. Everyone knows who he means. In his private diary, Churchill is far more blunt. On October 5th, he writes, visited both sectors. The contrast is staggering. Patton moves like lightning. Montgomery plans like a lawyer and executes like a clerk. I have never seen such a disparity between promise and performance. Years later, while writing his war memoirs, Churchill addresses Market Garden with unusual directness. There is no reason to assign blame to any individual. The plan was bold, the execution determined, the courage of our airborne forces beyond question. Yet one cannot help but observe that in war, as in life, some men achieve the improbable through will and skill combined. General Patton was such a man. He made the difficult look easy. Others, despite every advantage, make the easy look difficult. He never names Montgomery. He doesn't have to. In December 1944, the Germans launched their final major offensive, the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler throws everything into a desperate assault through the Ardennes, creating a massive bulge in the Allied lines. American forces at Bastogne are surrounded. Eisenhower calls an emergency meeting. The situation is critical. Who can relieve Bastogne? Montgomery, commanding to the north, explains that he will need 3 weeks to organize a proper counteroffensive. Proper planning, proper supply, proper preparation. Patton, attending the meeting from the south, studies the map in silence. Then he looks up. I can be there in 48 hours. Eisenhower stares at him. George, that's impossible. You have to turn your entire army 90 degrees north in the middle of winter. 48 hours, Patton repeats. Give me the word, and I'll have 3 divisions moving by tomorrow morning. And he does it. Third Army pivots north, advances through snow and ice, and reaches Bastogne in 72 hours. It becomes the fastest major redeployment in modern military history. The siege is broken. The German offensive collapses. Montgomery's counteroffensive launches 3 weeks later, exactly as promised. By then, Patton has already driven the Germans back 20 miles. Churchill hears the news and writes to his wife, "Patton has done it again." Monty is still planning. In his diary on December 28, 1944, Patton writes, "Bastogne relieved. Third Army moved 100 miles in 72 hours, turned an entire corps 90 degrees, and broke a German siege." Meanwhile, Montgomery is still preparing his positions. Churchill had been right. Some generals deliver, others make excuses. The final assessment of Market Garden versus Third Army operations becomes a case study in military academies for generations. It illustrates a fundamental principle of warfare. Resources do not win battles. Leadership does. Montgomery had everything. Patton had half. Montgomery failed. Patton succeeded. The reason, as Churchill understood instinctively, was simple. Patton was a warrior who understood that war rewards aggression, flexibility, and speed. Montgomery was a planner who believed war could be controlled through meticulous preparation. Both approaches have merit, but in the fluid, chaotic conditions of France and Germany in 1944, only one worked. Churchill's judgment on Montgomery was final. In private correspondence with Roosevelt in November 1944, he wrote, "Monty remains a capable defensive commander, but offensive warfare requires a different temperament. George has it. Bernard does not. We must use each man according to his abilities." Montgomery never received priority again. Patton never stopped moving. The war, contrary to Montgomery's prediction that Market Garden would end it by Christmas 1944, continued until May 1945. But when Germany finally surrendered, Third Army was deeper inside German territory than any other Allied force. They had advanced more than 600 miles from Normandy, captured over 300,000 prisoners, and liberated more than 80 major cities. Montgomery's final position in May 1945 was northern Germany, having advanced cautiously and methodically from Holland. Patton's final position was Czechoslovakia, having raced across southern Germany so fast that Eisenhower had to order him to stop. The lesson of Market Garden was not that bold operations fail. It was that bold operations require bold commanders. Montgomery tried to be something he was not. Patton was exactly what he appeared to be. Churchill recognized the difference, and once he did, the balance of power within the Allied command shifted permanently. If you found this story as fascinating as the thousands of others who discovered the untold truths of wartime history, make sure you're subscribed to WW2 Elite. There are dozens more stories like this, moments where history pivoted on individual decisions, where the truth is more dramatic than any fiction. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me which general you think was better,